cards. So it's like, until my parents are coming out, they want to, watch like their stuff they're used to. I won't.
Yeah, I know. The seniors outdid them.
We don't use it.
But I think there's a lot of
did.
people who are some
just like
actually
anything else is going to be a
because I've been trying to sign up for yoga classes, and all the yoga classes are between like 9 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Steward a job with the
Have
microphone
it
all
to
the
the
way in
core
the back.
things because we'll always have Netflix.
What's that?
Again, credit
Steward
cards
the
are
job with
amazing.
the microphone in the back since he's
And
all the
you're
way back
reversed for
there.
all my Disney stuff.
Nodding yes.
You want the microphones?
Now the microphone,
All
Stewart.
our hotels for
Started,
free.
everybody.
It's just
Thank you so
amazing.
much for coming tonight. First of all, we want to say thank you to all of you as well as to the committee here, the Broadband Committee. This is something that we've been working on actually for 3+ years at this point. We started with a broadband research committee. We moved into the feasibility study, which we had last year, and now we're in the implementation phase. What we're doing tonight is what we also did today at 10 and at noon, is really give you more information and have you have an opportunity that you can ask some questions. Nicole is here from Entry Point, which is the consulting firm that we've been working with through this implementation process and the research of this. And the biggest thing is that in order for you to buy into this kind of program and fiber and what fiber is all about, you need to be much more informed, as we do as well. We're still learning. Every single session we've had so far, we've learned something, including Nicole. And she wasn't an expert. So, but we really appreciate you being here. I'm gonna hand it right over to Nicole from Entry Point. She's gonna go through a short presentation, and then if you have any questions, we're gonna ask Stuart to walk around with the mic, and if you could just give us your name first and then your question, just so that we keep track of who's here tonight, as well as we're going to be writing the questions down. And we have a frequently asked questions page on our website, East Haddam Fiber. Please take a look at it. There are questions there already, but any questions that were asked today, we're going to add on to that. So it's just going to be a steady building process of information and learning, et cetera, et cetera. We will have other outreach events, such as Election Day. We'll have a booth outside, so you can come by, or you can send people saying, hey, you didn't make the meeting, but you can go by and talk to them on Election Day when you come in and vote. And we'll probably be maybe even going door to door at some point. The most important thing about this fiber is that once you become familiar with it, the more buy-in we have from the people in town, the cheaper it gets for all of us. And it will continue to be cheaper. And that's the key, is that listen to the presentation, you'll see why. Nicole.
Good
I just
evening.
kicked on the air, so we should be able to shut the window.
We just did.
Perfect. We shut the window.
Well, yeah.
So now we'll have air.
Did you
Great.
start it?
Oh, those windows are open. Hi, everyone. So this morning, this is our third meeting. This morning, I think almost every seat was filled with yes, and we had a lot of questions. So we learned a lot. So hopefully we'll incorporate a lot of that information into tonight's conversation. And this afternoon we had less people, a lot less people at lunch, but we were able to do so and end on time. So that's our goal, right? So we have an hour. First, I'd like to just kind of open up and remind everyone this is educational, right? We're not doing anything at this point. We're really gauging interest. This is about education for the community. The town of East Haddam, your committee, they've invested a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy and effort over the past couple of years, specifically in the last, I would say, 18 months. And so we've gotten to work together, gotten to know each other. I got to drive around your gorgeous town. Oh my gosh, absolutely beautiful today. And I have a better idea too, right, of what we're looking at. So I'm able to better articulate, back to my team when talking about design and architecture, things that we're going to get into and talk to you about how that will work in the future. So I guess the first question I really have for everyone is broadband essential? Do you believe it's essential? That's a question that you personally need to answer for yourself. The town collectively needs to also answer. And what we mean by essential is broadband as essential as electricity or water to your home? And, as we learned through the pandemic, it became apparent that we needed to do something. So the federal government turned their attention States have turned their attention, and now there's a lot of focus on really serving the unserved, the underserved, and creating a level of equity, right, within this broadband infrastructure. So that's really kind of, from your perspective and the town's perspective, the number one question you need to ask yourselves. Is a community network something that we feel is essential to our town? So what I like to talk through, when you talk about a community network, it's a public infrastructure. What we've always known is what a private infrastructure is, right? Comcast, Frontier, and they're working for themselves, right? They're not working for the better of a community. They're in it for a profit margin, and that's not wrong, right? Making money is not a bad thing. But when it comes to broadband infrastructure, ensuring, if you believe it should be an essential service, ensuring that connectivity for all is something that we're all working towards, it's not going to happen in the private world. It's something we do have to turn to as a public infrastructure, right? And what we're talking about is equality in access. And so with a public infrastructure, you are looking at running fiber to every home. It doesn't matter how long your driveway is, okay? It doesn't matter if you're a business, small or large. It means everyone has fiber. It's to every building in your town. And that's really the idea here, right? If we go to looking at how our road systems have been built, what if we told UPS, FedEx, Amazon, all right, DHL, the US Postal Service, they all had to build their own roads to your home or business? What would our road structures look like, right? Physically, what would that look like? It would be a mess. It would be a positive, absolute mess. But we didn't. We built an open infrastructure where everyone can travel on it, right, equally. That's what we're saying when we're talking about broadband. It's about creating one network that everyone can travel on. So all the internet service providers and future innovations, we don't know what they are yet, can come and offer their services on your broadband network. So, and that broadband network happens to be a fiber line to every premise, every home, every business. Is that kind of making sense? Is everybody understanding kind of the context? Okay. So when we talk about the nature of a community infrastructure, I'm talking about access, ubiquitous access. Reliability, all right, is a big factor. We'll talk about that. Affordability, long-term sustainability. How do you achieve these things, right? And this truly is the vision with what we consider an automated open access fiber to the premise network. It's a lot of words, okay? But that's what we're working towards, is to achieve these things. And through that, what we also get is the added benefit of enhanced emergency communications and security as well. And we're going to talk about some additional benefits. So right now, this is what basically we all have. We have a cable coming to our home, and if we're fortunate enough, we may have a fiber line. But all you get over that one line is internet service. ISP means internet service provider, whomever that is, Comcast, XYZ company, all right? What we're talking about, because of the software and the technology, is taking that one line, which in this case is fiber, and being able to virtually splice it in a lot of different ways. We can do a lot more with it. And the reason we can do a lot more with it is because fiber, we're able to virtualize and do things with software that you can't do with a traditional cable line like Comcast or a private-owned network. So a private-owned network is only going to allow you to do one thing, get your internet. But with a public community network, you're able to do more. And so we're able to splice that fiber. So in your home, you can have multiple internet service providers if you wanted. Let's say you want one for your business. You run a business out of your home. one for your family, right? Your kids streaming and gaming, all of that. And then another for, say, finances. You know, you want to separate out these things. You could if you wanted. Earlier today in a meeting, we had a gal who does run a business out of her home. She's like, I'd love to have 2 separate lines, but Comcast tells me that they've got to come and bring me another line. Well, we don't have to do that with fiber. With fiber and our software technology, we're able to virtualize that and provide her with 2 separate networks, 2 separate providers. So it's one line doing multiple things. So I know I'm talking vaguely, right? But when they gave us these phones, however many years ago, and all the apps, did you think there would be as many different things you can do on your phone that you can do today, right? When I first got my phone, it was for calling, maybe texting. Remember, the characters were limited. You know, now I can watch movies. Now I, can game. I can do so many different things on my phone, and that's really the vision that we have for this technology, is that it's really futuristic, and we don't even know what the future will bring and what the types of applications we'll be able to run through this type of software. But that's in essence what we're doing, is we're going from a single line to a single line that we're able to do much more with. Okay? So open access supports, like we talked about, reliable service. Fiber is just a lot more reliable than cable. It travels at the speed of light minus any friction, okay? There's always friction. And people say, well, how long is fiber going to be here, right? If cable is going away, which it is, cable just does not have the ability to do what we need it to do, and so it does have a termination or expiration period, maybe 10 years, and fiber will be replacing that. All the big companies know that. They're all working towards replacing their cable with fiber. So, this greater bandwidth, technology for the future, comes reliability, sustainability, and I think one of the greatest things with open access, and especially automated open access, is a marketplace of things that you'll be able to choose from. And we do have a video, so you'll better understand what I mean by marketplace. But it also spurs kind of that engine for economic growth. I drove through your town. Love it, by the way. And someone told me in 1950, they took down all the historic, charming little buildings and put strip malls. And now the objective, right, is to revitalize that and get back to where we were with that quaintness, right, to build, to bring in restaurants. You get, 300,000 people at the castle every year? That's huge. What if it's 600,000? Now, with that growth, right, there are its own issues. But, with that, you might bring in hotels and restaurants and things like that that really spur your economy. And honestly, this technology will help you do that. And so that's what we mean by economic growth. So everybody always wants to know cost. It's always out there. So we're going to talk about it really quickly. We went online last week. We pulled these numbers from Comcast. Comcast is, if I'm understanding correctly, just cable right now. Frontier is running fiber in certain areas. And these are their programs, their promotions. They're basic, right? You can add on to these, build packages, stuff like that. But this is just basic. If we're looking at East Haddam and what we're projecting right now, we did a feasibility analysis. We did some what we call low-level engineering to come up with this number. But we're looking at about $70 to $75 a month. Is it more expensive? Yeah, it is. I mean, well, I guess for their more expensive, with a gig, without the promotion rates, it's about equal, right in there. But the idea is that we use a 3-prong approach, modeling approach. And when you build out an infrastructure of this nature, you have your infrastructure costs, which are 18 million?
13 to 18.
13 to 18 million that were projected in the study. Then on top of that, you have regular maintenance and operations. Someone has to replace any equipment, service the infrastructure, okay? If there's an outage, take care of those types of things. And so you have to prepare for that. And then what we did in the $70 is took a $10 internet service provider cost, because our clients who currently are on the network have a $10 1 gig symmetrical up and down service. So with that, we got to the $70 to $75 a month. But the idea is once the infrastructure is paid off, that cost comes down. And now this is based on 60% take rate. Take rate is people who sign up, right? And that's why we're doing this. We're going through this education process to better understand if people would pay that. Would you sign up for a community-owned network? And would you pay that? And it might be more expensive because there's nothing to stop these two organizations or anybody else, right, from coming in and saying, well, we'll give you a gig symmetrical for $25. Well, what happens after that contract's up, right? Or what happens if we don't build the network and they come in and they sell everybody on the $25, and then 3 years from now, you have no other option, and it goes to $150. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying we've all been subject to working with these companies, and we know their game, right? Well, if we invite competition into the marketplace, and there's nothing to say they can't stay here, you know, and if you choose to stay with them, you can. You know, you don't have to come onto the community network, but they certainly could be a provider. They could come on and offer their services through the community network as well. So there's a lot of things that could possibly happen, right? Just things to think about, things we want to talk through, questions we want to ask. Okay. I'm going to show you a quick video so that you have a better idea of what I mean by automated open access. It's a newer terminology, and we're asking people to think about something they've never had to think about before, right? Our phone lines, when I was born, were just in our house, right? I don't know where they came from. They were just there. You know, and things have evolved since then. Then the internet came and there was dial-up and it just worked, right? And then all of a sudden cable came and we had all these cable television channels and it just showed up, right? And we've not had to think about this. It's just something that's been there. So it's new terminology, it's new concepts, it's something new to learn, right? So it's okay that you may walk away and go, well, that's interesting, but I don't know, and that's all right, because it's new for everyone. We're all learning about this together. Okay, so I want everybody to feel comfortable with that. So when we get to the end and you have questions, really want you to ask your questions and feel comfortable, because like I said, this is something we're all learning together. Okay, so I'm going to play this video and show you what I mean by automated open access and how this would work in your home or your business. Maybe, if I can push on the button. Okay.
A customer on an automated open network can switch their internet service provider in less than 60 seconds because the service.
Okay, do you know how to turn
Over
it
on the on the sidebar, there's a volume. Yep.
Okay, this might be too loud. We'll see.
A customer on an automated open access network can switch their internet service provider in less than 60 seconds because the service provider has been moved to the cloud. What does this process look like for the consumer? From the
Sorry.
It worked earlier.
It did work earlier, but we tested it earlier, remember? And then we shut everything down. So there's got to be a way. Okay.
on an automated open access network
Better, thank
can
you.
switch their internet service provider in less than 60 seconds because the service provider has been moved to the cloud. What does this process look like for the consumer? From the subscriber, a customer can view all available ISPs and service plan options. To subscribe to ISP service, a customer simply clicks on the internet service category and is presented with the available companies and service plans. Once the customer selects and subscribes to the plan they want, an ISP network connection is automatically created, and within seconds, their internet services are configured. The customer's dashboard displays the subscription information, and the customer can now access the internet. If at any time the ISP does not deliver the quality or reliability the customer expects, they can simply access the subscriber portal, cancel their service, and go through the subscription process to select a new ISP. To cancel or unsubscribe to their existing service, the customer simply clicks unsubscribe, and the system automatically disconnects their service. The customer can then go through the subscription process with a different ISP, and in a matter of seconds, a new broadband network is established with a new provider. Returning to the customer's dashboard, it now shows they arrived to the new ISP.
Just jokes.
30 seconds.
All right.
So it's that easy. You don't have to make phone calls anymore and wait for tech people to come to hook you all up. It's just subscribe, unsubscribe. Within 30 to 60 seconds, you have an internet service provider.
And what I keep saying is what that's doing is facilitating free market competition, because what we're doing is creating that public road where those FedEx and Amazon can compete on that infrastructure to bring you your service. So this is creating that public road so that these ISPs, internet service providers, are competing with each other to provide the service, which you don't have when you have a monopoly like we're currently in type of situation.
So a good way I like to think about it too, in addition to the road system, is Amazon. We all, well, not all, I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of us purchase from Amazon, right? I go online and I'm looking for cutting boards. Oh my goodness gracious, I never knew there were so many cutting board options out there and so many makers. Seriously, it's so overwhelming. But there's choice. And when you invite choice, right, what happens? Costs, everything becomes competitive in the marketplace, right? You're not beholden to just one or two. You now have a variety of options. And that's what we're saying here, is we're opening up a marketplace for internet service providers to come and offer their services. And I don't even know what all those services are gonna be. Right now, it's just internet, right? Again, I come back to the phone and the apps. It will explode because there will be some very smart people who are a lot younger than me, all right, who come along one day and invent all sorts of different types of things that we never thought were possible, we never even dreamt of, right? And I think that's really what is groundbreaking about this type of technology. And not all open access systems are created equal. There are a handful out there, 4, maybe 5, that are out there. We are, as of now, the only company that has developed the software, the security, and the patents to provide the automation. And it's not enough, right? We're still innovating. You know, our Chief Innovation Officer, that's what it was. Our CIO, our Chief Innovation Officer, lives in a very remote town of Idaho. And he is honestly the inventor of this concept and this idea because he lived in a town where he didn't have anything but dial-up and said there has got to be a solution. And so he invented this technology and is still today continually working on improving the technology and developing things that, you know, are really future thinking, that will bring this technology even, even more forward. So, you know, when we talk about open access, like I said, there's a lot of different models out there, but this one in your home or in your business where you can switch your internet service provider, you know, at any time is unique. It's only one of its kind, especially when we talk about, like if we initially were to build out the town of East Haddam, we'd probably start with 2 or 3. Reason we would start with 2 or 3 internet service providers, and we can bring them, or we also like to work with local internet service providers. So if there's a local company here in town, we'd work with them to bring them onto the network. And so what we do is, because not everybody comes onto the system at one time, right? It's a rolling process. Everybody doesn't get implemented all at once. There's a lot of construction that takes place. So, you know, it's kind of a slow rolling implementation process. And so it gives these internet service providers an opportunity to build a base, right? To build a customer base. But then over time, you know, you could have a dozen internet service providers 10 years later offering service. And whatever comes with that, right? They're creative solutions. So we're really excited. We feel that there's a number of benefits, which we have listed here. Number one, connectivity for all. I think that, you know, especially when I hear that there's still people on dial-up in the town of East Haddam, that's not okay. That's like caveman years. I don't know how you function in today's society with that. You know, that's just not fair. And so I think that's the number one. But then all the other opportunities that it brings and it affords to a town such as yours, that is 57 square miles. That's incredible. That's a lot of space, and I think we drove it today. So that's really all I had to share. Anything that I forgot from the committee that you want to touch on?
I wonder if it would be a good idea to describe for the people that may not understand what that synchronized 1 gig meant, because that's
Okay.
something that I understood after you gave the description, but the term didn't make sense to me.
Did I do that, or did Jeff do that? Okay, I'll try.
It's really
Plain
easy, I think. right?
Okay, so we all sign up for service today through our provider, and they promise us, you know, 500 megabytes, a gig, but it's up to, right? And when we say symmetrical, we mean up and down 1 gigabit symmetrical bandwidth service. So I get fairly frustrated. So my husband and I both work from home, and twice a week our son comes and works from our home office. The 3 of us could be on 3 separate Zoom or team meetings. We have multiple windows open on the internet, right? Videos, the whole 9 yards. We are using a lot of bandwidth. The buffering, the freezing, the kicking out, you know, that we get kicked off meetings or things along those lines. The freezing, that's my favorite, you know, especially when your face freezes in such a beautiful pose. It can be frustrating. And so what we're saying is that this is not up to, it is 1 gigabit symmetrical up and download speeds. It's a non-shared network, meaning you are not competing for bandwidth with your neighbor. So if it's a Sunday afternoon and you have 3 or 4 televisions on in your house and everybody's watching something different, Netflix, Hulu, ESPN, you name it, and your neighbor is doing the same thing, and so on and so on. Currently, right now, 30 to 60 to 100 homes could be sharing a connection. That's why they say up to, right? Because they can't guarantee it because they're shared connections. So that's why we all experience all that buffering, freezing, and booting out of systems. This is a non-shared network. You're not sharing with your neighbors. It's a dedicated line to your home. So those instances shouldn't ever happen unless there's something wrong with the network. There literally should never be an instance where that happens. Is that okay?
That was perfect.
All right. Questions? Yes.
Can you say more about the long-term price stability?
Colleen, can you just hold off 1 second?
Oh,
Say your
I'm
name
sorry.
and then question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Colleen Shaddix.
Perfect.
Can you say more about the long-term price stability? What would be in place to ensure that we have that?
So, with a community-owned network, the idea is it operates like a quasi-utility, right? So, right, there are price controls and managements in place for electricity, for gas, for, well, I guess, not the gas that comes to your home in the truck that fills up the gas tank.
Oil.
I learned that today, the oil. And not water, because everybody's on their own water here. But I guess electricity is the best way to say that, right? So electricity being a utility, it's managed. And so this being a community network and kind of a quasi-utility, costs are managed. So it's not out to make a profit. It's out to cover its costs and basically grow in time to manage, any infrastructure upgrades and things to that nature. So when you talk about long-term price stability, that's number one. That's its objective, right? Number two, once the infrastructure cost is paid off, all right, and it could take 20 years, that cost goes away. It's gone. That's the biggest piece of that $70, actually. It's, I think, like $22 or $25. So that $70 comes down significantly. It could be $45, it could be $50, $55. Now, maintenance and operations is always going to be there. You're always going to need repair work. You're always going to need to replace equipment. Those costs are going to go up over time, right? We all know inflation exists. We all know that salaries keep going up because we're going to have to employ people. So, but we prepare for those things, right? And we adjust for those things. So, but that's how we manage the costs. And then the internet service providers, honestly, like right now we're showing $10, but it could even go lower. I mean, who's to say, it's not $5 at some point in time? And I think, though, that it's important to understand this is internet service, right? This does not include your over-the-top services like your VoIP service if you have a VoIP. Does not include Netflix or Hulu or Max or any of those over-the-top streaming services that you subscribe to, or anything else any of these internet service providers will think of one day, right, to sell you. This is just for the basic service for internet.
I know for myself, Colleen, I've been getting a lot of ads from Frontier recently where it's like $39.99 and then in like teeny tiny writing for a limited time only. And so this is the exact opposite of that. We're saying we're not going to escalate your costs over time, and hopefully when when the infrastructure is paid off, your costs will go lower. And so
We got to the end of our Comcast contract and it doubled.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we've all experienced that of like,
Yeah.
and when you don't have competition, that is what can happen.
Yeah, our $75, it's not a teaser rate to get people in the door. That's what's gonna cost you. And as Teresa said, once that infrastructure cost is paid for, your price will actually go down. So that's the big difference between this type of network and the private networks of Comcast, Frontier, et cetera.
I do want to be transparent. That's what we're projecting.
Right, yeah.
Could be less, could be more. That's what right now we've done, like I said, the feasibility level design, where we have an engineering study that we identified what we think it would take to build out the network and go live. Now, we still have to go through the financing process, all right? There are programs out there, federal and state programs, where we're hoping that those will be kind of the answer, the solution, at low interest rates. And so we feel fairly confident, but at the same time, we can't guarantee that, right? Because if that's this process, that's the next step in this process. So today is education. Would you be interested in supporting a network of this nature, right? If yes, and we get enough support, then we're gonna go and explore what it would take to actually make that happen, put numbers together, and say, all right, is this doable? Is it not? Will the town support this? Will it not, right? And so that's a step. And then if approved, right, then we have to go look at who are we going to work with from an engineering perspective, who are we going to work with from a construction perspective, who are we going to outsource maintenance and operations to, as the town doesn't have the ability, right, the infrastructure in-house to manage that. So we outsource that maintenance and operations. And so there's a process, right? So honestly, ideally, like, if we could start, you know, with our first shovel in the ground by summer, that would be thrilling. But that's kind of the timeline that we've talked about today, and those are kind of the steps that we shared with everybody. So it's a process, and this is really the first step in the process. Second step. We did the first step, the feasibility. We got here. This is the second step. Yes. Oh, Stuart.
Do you need the microphone?
Yeah, so we can hear you.
Okay, yes I do. First of all, thank you very much for coming here tonight.
Name?
There was a,
No, it's not.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
What
okay.
is your name?
My name is Todd Gelston, live on 50 Boulder Road, Haddam, Connecticut. I have a bunch of questions, I'll be honest.
Okay.
But the first thing I want to say, thank you for coming. It's a lot better than going to Middletown middle of the day. Another option. So, but I have a bunch of questions. First of all, I'm interested in speed and bandwidth. I want to know, today I have a satellite system because my cable system was virtually non-existent. And Comcast, even though I paid a lot of bucks, they didn't answer the calls. So I had to do something, otherwise I wouldn't be able to work at home. So this whole business with internet is now no longer a luxury. Most of us, it's a necessity. And okay, so that's why speed and bandwidth is important to me. What are the bandwidth limits today for a conventional cable system?
So we're talking a minimum, what the automated open access, what this would bring is a minimum of 1 gig symmetrical bandwidth up and down.
1 gig?
1 gig.
What do I have today?
Today, I don't know, you could have 250 megabytes,
Yeah.
500.
Yeah, it's between 4 or 5 and a gig.
Okay.
But on satellite, you may not even have that much, Todd,
Yeah.
honestly.
And on cable, you probably don't
Oh,
either.
I think I do have more, but I can't tell you what,
Yeah.
because it works so much better than what I had before.
Yeah.
That's my only.
Well, the one thing with satellite is you're not competing with your neighbors,
Yeah.
right? That's dedicated for you.
You're competing
Yeah.
with the clouds and the
It's-
trees.
Okay.
The clouds and the trees and the rock.
I think I heard you say with this fiber system, independent of my neighborhood. Is that a fair
Yeah,
statement?
You're not competing with your neighbors for bandwidth, no.
I don't care if they're putting on a rock concert next door with 10,000 people listening, doesn't bother me. Okay,
Exactly.
all right. And along with that was speed. What can you tell me about speed?
So I think I talk about speed and bandwidth as the same thing. Is that fair to say?
You could say that. but,
Okay.
I guess bandwidth says it all. I'll think about it. So you're not sure about speed, but you do tell me that with bandwidth, it's a lot more.
The bandwidth and the speed in my world, in our world, and the way we're talking about it is one and the same.
Okay. All right. Next question I want to ask. Who owns the system? The fiber, the connections? Who owns that? Who's responsible for it?
So that's ideally the community, East Haddam.
The
There will
government.
be a local network that is owned by the community. Now,
Makes me a little nervous.
so you won't be doing it alone. There will be a joint partnership arrangement, most likely. And so there'll be a partner, most likely Entry Point, our company, that will help you, or the financier that we find together. But it will, the idea is that it is network owned and controlled by the community, so that you don't have to rely on the cable company any longer, and you're able to do more with your system long term.
Well, also, there's two things, Todd, with partnership with the community and an outside organization. One is funding, right? We can get lower interest rates, potentially. The second is based on the rights of the municipality to get on utility poles versus an outside agency
Correct.
greatly lowers the cost of this project.
Correct.
So there are partner benefits to partnering and having this be a a split joint venture with the community.
So there's municipal gain laws passed by the state of Connecticut that allow the town to hang anything, well, not anything, but
Wires.
wires, telecommunication, and other types of community wires on those poles. Teresa's done a lot of research, and it's the town's right to use those at no cost.
Interesting. This reminds me of the town in the 1600s, when everybody had their own private roads. Had their toll roads were just that. So it's just a turnpike to toll road. You had to pay money to get from East Haddam to Colchester. And several stops. So essentially, you're building a highway.
Yes,
It's exactly what we're doing.
exactly what we're doing.
For public purpose.
Exactly.
Except that the people who would be paying for the system are the users of it, not taxpayers.
There'll be no bonding, yeah.
It wouldn't be taxpayers paying for it, it's
Yeah.
the users who are, and I was also gonna mention that 60% take rate, that means 60% of the households, if we can get 60% of the households, if we can get more, so if you all can convince your neighbors to get onto this network, those costs also go down because there's more people sharing that overhead cost, which is the infrastructure. And like we've mentioned, there's a lot of federal and state funds floating around right now with basically no one prepared to capture them, to hopefully also really drive down that initial infrastructure costs for us.
You had mentioned the going to Middletown.
Yes.
DEEP in the state of Connecticut just are formulating their program here in the state for broadband and to launch it so that towns and municipalities can get involved in that. And we're already talking about what our system's gonna look like and we're gonna build it. So we're actually really ahead of the curve here as far as this goes, which is great. We're at the front of the line as far as getting those funds as soon as we get there. So this is really just, we want to make sure that everybody in town understands it better so that we can proceed to the next steps, which are going to be, again, finding out exactly the cost and what the design looks like so that we can start going in for those federal grants as well as state grants.
Thank you. That's cost is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you folks, but I was looking at my phone bill last night. A lot of add-ons. I mean, there's more add-ons than when I started with this company.
Yeah.
So the add-ons, federal and state, and one other couple of things I don't even understand. So I hope this doesn't end up the same. So,
No.
So that's my concern, one of my concerns. Could you tell me, okay, you plan to put fiber optic, is that one strand on every road in East Haddam?
So there will be a line down every road, feasible, right? I mean, the design and engineering phase will come into play where they'll create a schematic, and then they will, in the cloud, right? They'll create this in the cloud, and then they'll come and actually walk and identify, is this feasible? Is it not? What variations do we have to come up with? What creative solutions do we have to solve for, right? We know there's special cases here in East Haddam. We discovered that and talked about it today. So not every, I think, solution to getting fiber to every home is going to look the same. Some are going to be hung on poles. Some is going to run through conduit. Some is going to be through micro trenching in creative ways, down roads that are a mile long. It really could evolve and be different for everyone. But so the fiber strands will run down the main roads, and then we call it a drop. We will run a line to every home that signs up. So a fiber line to extend to another fiber line to your home. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And then it aggregates and it goes into huts and all sorts of stuff, throughout kind of, and that's where the engineers come into play and create this design. But yes, it will be fiber, a single fiber line to every home.
So if I have a
So that's maintenance and operations. Remember, I kind of talked about maintenance and operations. So we're going to most likely outsource that since the town doesn't have in-sourced resources. So we'll find an organization, a local company. We'll go through an RFP process. We'll look to see who's the best fit. And if there's an issue with the line, they'll come out and service the line. If there's an issue with your box, so right now you have a router in your home, I'm assuming with satellite. It'll be replaced with what we call a VBG. That VBG is called a virtual broadband gateway, and it's a little mini computer the size of your router that sits in your home that everything plugs into just like your router does today. If there's an issue with that, they'll come out and they'll replace that. We talked about having kind of a supply here in town hall, right? If somebody doesn't want to wait for, you know, someone to bring out a box, they just want to come pick one up themselves, you know, that might be a possibility. But, you know, we'll look to this organization to provide that service.
In my place, could all my hookups be by cable, by wire? Do I need to be wireless in any manner at all? My hookup in my house?
Depends on how your house is set up.
Yeah, it depends on how your house is set up.
You have
but
Cat 6 or Cat 5 running through your house, yes, you could bring everything back hardwired to this box and
I have a lot of fear about EMF. I can't understand it. Now they're putting more energy in the air. And I know my computer friends, the experts tell me that wire can carry a lot more bandwidth than wireless. I'm running that right now in my place. So I think, frankly, I'll predict in the future, we're going to see a lot of wireless stuff go away at home because of EMF. Getting to understand the dangers of it. Europe has already passed regulations that we don't have here yet. So we'll see what happens. But I just want to make sure when this comes, that I can completely wire my house.
Yes.
I want nothing to do with wireless.
Yep.
In fact, I shut my router off at night. It's nothing anybody's doing. Anyway, next thing I want to know, frankly, I won't name names.
Yeah.
But the other providers that are here now, their biggest failure is the quality of service.
Oh.
That's the single biggest reason why I dropped. Well, I dropped the previous provider for two reasons. One, the quality was abysmal. And second of all, it was working, it wasn't working. So it's absolutely no good. So I'm really worried about who monitors the quality of service.
So here's the best part. It's your network.
My network's
You are in control, right? Yes, there's different levels of service. So if there's an issue with the internet service provider that you choose and you're unhappy with them, you can just switch providers automatically and it takes 30 seconds, which you saw on that video. If it's an issue with the hardware, meaning that VBG that sits in your home, that's replaceable, right? That's either this town purchases the hardware through us, or they can go out and purchase it themselves. They're white boxes, to be honest with you. All we do is load them with software. They're mini computers. Right now, the router that you have in your house is really just a transmitter. It doesn't really do anything other than transmit. We're putting mini computers in your home. Let's face it, you know, there's going to be issues from time to time with that hardware. You're going to maybe get a faulty box here and there, but those are easily replaceable and provisioned based on the unit stays with the residency, right? It's associated with the residency or the business. It's not something that you have to buy or take with you when you move or return. It just stays there. It's associated with that actual physical address. So that, you know, is another element of customer service. If I say something's happening, you know, and you want to talk to your internet service provider because maybe there's some friction going on or something you're unhappy with, you know, you can call them, work through them. You can call Entry Point and work through our operations team. But we also have that maintenance and operations group, right, that we're going to outsource service to, that's also there to support your needs. The system, so we have our original client in Ammon, Idaho. has gone about this a different way than your town. There's no recipe for how to do this yet. You know, every city or town who's considered or implemented a system of this nature has all done it in their own unique way, right? There isn't a secret sauce yet. And I think that they're at about 60% take rate, but they did it a different way and how they financed it. And I think they're at a 99% customer retention rate. Not bad. And I would say, I'm saying 99 because I'm not sure it's 100 and I don't want to misspeak because they may have lost 1 or 2 customers over the past 7 years. But maybe it's just because people moved, right? It's very minimal. So the service, we have not had we haven't had an issue with yet. So we feel really confident to say you'd be really satisfied with the level of service.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay.
Different direction, though. Much better we have today. I have one or two more questions. Maybe you said it before, but I came a little bit late. There's 3 costs to any project. The installation, cost to build, cost to operate, cost to maintain. Do you have any idea what those costs are going to be for your staff?
So the business model, and the transparent business model that we present, yes, you have the infrastructure, which is the building, which I think we projected, I want to say around, and I'd have to look at our study. I don't
Somewhere
remember
between
what
13
it
and
is.
18 million.
But 13 and
Yeah.
13 and 18 million dollars on the infrastructure. And then the maintenance and operation costs we estimate are around $25 a month, I believe. And then you have your internet service provider costs. So, and that's kind of what we've come up with. So I'm probably off on my numbers because I don't know what that 18 million breaks down to, but it's the difference between that 35. So it's probably another $35 to $40 for that infrastructure cost. Is my math right?
And Todd, we can send you the feasibility study that we did, has it broken down by each section so you can kind of get a sense of your $75 bill, what portion of that is each.
Yeah.
All I know is I paid a lot more than $75 today. And I get pretty good
And
service.
don't hold me to this $75. It could be 80.
Yeah.
It could be 69. We don't know yet, right? It really depends on take rate, on those who sign up. The more people who sign up, the more you spread that infrastructure across, right? So costs come down, ideally. So if you were to get an 80% take rate, those numbers could dramatically change.
And if we get a significant grant from the federal or the state, we'll definitely reduces
Reduces the liability.
the infrastructure cost to us, which will reduce the price.
I don't think any of us are comfortable with a number until we go out and we get an RFP and we get somebody in here to come look at the town, right? No, I've been saying right along with this group, Todd, that East Haddam is not like any other town you've ever worked in, right? When we look at how the roads, the number of trees, the rock, all of that, it is going to change the way things get priced. So this is a very high level estimate, but we do believe it's within a range that works. And the hope would be the take rate is a lot higher than 60%.
Yeah.
And people start to spread the word, and then that's gonna drop that cost.
I imagine a lot of people in town today that are buffering a lot,
Mhm.
watching a movie. You've got 2 or 3 other computers in the same house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real pain. It's gotten a lot worse these past 6 months, in my estimation. But anyway, that's very good. Thank you very much. I just hope that quality of service, I like to have somebody, a belly button or an arm I can grab.
Yes. We'll make sure you have that.
Yeah.
We'll make sure you have that.
Yeah.
If not, I'll be here. I'll put a hard hat on.
My satellite service has been very good.
Good.
I call them, I get a sharp, clear answer, and I get it fixed. And I have very few problems with them anyway. As compared to my previous provider, which is like, got to know what's on a first name basis. So bad.
Remind me, tell me your name again.
Todd.
Todd, you might be one of our influencers. We can get you on board. We might have you knocking on doors.
I'm not that great at influencing people.
I have a feeling you ask a lot of questions and you're very knowledgeable, and people feel very comfortable in what you know.
This is great, so the town needs timetable, what do you expect?
So again, high level, we're going through this education and awareness process to see, who, if we could get the interest level. We have to go to the bank, literally, right, and figure out the financing pieces, identify and apply for the grants. That money is going to be released next year, right?
Really next year?
Yeah. We have to do an RFP for construction, and we have to do the engineering, which comes before the construction, right? Because the construction needs to know what to bid on. And so, I mean, optimistically, if we could, put a shovel in the ground in the summer, I think that would be really cool. Now, that's really optimistic, but I think everyone here would love to see that.
Okay.
I honestly think we're gonna be ahead of the grants, right? We're gonna be
I think
sitting,
we're waiting
waiting
for the grants.
for the state to tell us what money's available.
In my experience, when you're ready for the grant, it seems to come a lot faster.
Hey, we'll see.
Press.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I think, one thing, just to add to what you had said, Todd, about your phone service, right? Once you have reliable internet in your house and through fiber, then you have a lot of options around phone. You don't have to rely on Frontier anymore for your phone service. There are a lot of VoIP, companies out there that provide really good, really cheap, I'll call it, right? And reliable phone service. I think I pay $7 a month for my VoIPs in my house right now.
UMA and things
Yeah,
like that.
I use VoIPo. It's just,
Yeah.
there's a lot of choices out there to pick from.
And if you go out to the FAQs online, so if you haven't been out to the website, which if you're sitting here, I'm guessing you may have looked at it, but if you haven't, there's an FAQ section that we're going to be continually updating. Like Irene said at the beginning, we're going to be adding to it and building. We've gotten a lot of great questions, and we want to make sure we capture a lot of that information. And so there is the VoIP piece out there already. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can, and how it works. A lot of links to a lot of different companies and the resources that they offer.
Uh-huh.
Dead? Okay.
Talk loudly.
Hi.
Hi.
I also piggyback on him with hard wiring. He's a 2-time brain tumor survivor. And
Wow.
a lot of it, I believe, happened when they put the towers up on my side of East Haddam about 10 years ago. My question to you is, you talk a lot about Idaho and how they built out their system and how they have, you said about 60%, 99% supposedly are taking from it. What towns around East Haddam can you say that have similar demographics or the same demographics that you have built out this fiber service currently to date around this area?
So the village of Sherburne, New York, is about 2,500, I think, 3,000 households, I think so.
Smaller than us.
Smaller than you, but they are in the process, but very similar environment, a little bit more spread out. They are in the process of implementing their system. I think they have 550 users right now. I think they have another, I think they'll be at the end of the year about 1,000.
Specifically though here.
In Connecticut?
Here has fiber been already put down?
So
We don't have-
with our organization, nowhere.
So how does that work? Because you said you'd want to build out 57 square feet here. How long would that
Square
take
miles.
to
Square miles.
actually do that? I mean,
So-
you have the connection already coming through part of Connecticut into East Haddam.
Do you want to explain that and the backbone and how that all works today?
Well, it's, I mean, there is infrastructure, there is backbone that already sits and exists within Connecticut that this would tie into to get you back out to all those ISPs.
Right.
So you're not running from across the world, right,
Yeah,
to get into
not.
Connecticut or Idaho.
Their company isn't even here yet.
Correct. You would be running 57 square miles, or a lot more cable than 57 miles, of cable on every road in town to do that.
How long do you think if you broke dirt summer,
We talked about it like 2 to 3 years.
3 years,
Like,
yeah.
At least 3 to 5
Correct.
years. Because there's gonna be problems. It's never gonna be
Without
what
a
the
doubt.
timetable is.
Frontier has been running fiber in town now, and it's taken them, you've seen them on Mount
Still not on
Parnassus.
my side of the area.
Yeah, it's
So
not a quick
actually
process,
do it
and
here.
splicing and takes time. But you ultimately look at starting and getting your main
And I
runs
also feel
done.
like he does to hardwire, because wireless
Mhm.
might be some of the issue about why I have migraine tumors and other people on our side of East Haddam.
I need to research that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
You can hardwire your house.
Yeah, that's your choice. What sits in
Yeah.
your house? You could choose to go wired, wireless,
Absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I think he's right, Europe is gonna be the forefront runner to start getting rid of wireless. Some of these reasons. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. What other questions do we have? Yes, sir.
Hi, Dave Cassini.
Dave.
I've been thinking about it, and so you're hoping for, your goal is 100% take rate.
60%.
Your goal is.
A goal would be 100.
Yes,
Yeah.
100% at the end of the day,
But-
yes.
So, but you're looking at getting 60%. Is that like the lowest percent that, before this could start? Or is that just what you were basing your numbers on?
Be feasible that we can pay it, he's right, because if we get 30%, we're not
Yeah.
gonna pay $200 renting it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So I have a feeling you say, we need this minimum percentage in order to make it feasible and cost effective for everybody.
Yeah, I would say between 50 and 60%. 60% is
Minimum.
Ideal.
objective.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we put our survey out, Dave, sorry to interrupt,
That's okay.
but when we put that survey out, we'd hoped that we'd get somewhere between 250 and 300
People.
replies. We got something like
Almost 600,
500,
almost
almost
600.
600 replies. So
So you got
there's
interest.
clearly
Oh,
yeah.
the interest in the town. So
The-
we're guessing that we'll probably get at least 60%.
Okay.
But we're also not signing anything
Right.
until we have
Yeah.
at least 60%.
Correct.
Are you gonna
So
make a
nobody's
referendum?
obligated to do anything until we have enough that the cost is agreeable to everybody,
Okay.
whether it be 70 or 75
Do you
or
think do a
65.
referendum and a vote to see what the town wants to do?
Well, yeah, we certainly could put it to referendum. I don't see why we couldn't if
Yeah.
that was something.
I don't know.
I don't know, because the
That would
town's
give you
not,
a clear indication of who was
But
actually.
you
Yeah.
still don't commit, right? We don't know it's you that said yes, so there's
Oh,
no,
that's
But
true.
so-
Some
but-
form of
yeah.
on our,
data.
on
I
our,
would like the data.
yeah, on our website right now, we've started collecting, are you interested in building this out? I think we're at
275
two
right now.
seventy-five, so we're at
275
two seventy-five
people.
households, so
Over the
that's,
past 10 days, we've gotten 275 people.
that's almost 10%, and that's just kind of
On
like,
the internet. I
that's
mean,
just-
on the like Facebook is where
Right,
we.
right.
yeah,
that's
that's like
fine.
very
We haven't
little
even
word
put it
of
out
mouth.
everywhere yet.
And it hasn't been in the newspapers yet. I just also wanted to piggyback off Todd for a second, and I know you've talked about this publicly, so you had to get satellite because you upload really complex files for work. And I saw some people shudder when you talked about economic development of like building lots of things and bringing hotels in. When I think about one of the major benefits for this is attracting people to our town.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of people who are on Zoom, like uploading complex files. If you work with any type of videography, Consumer Reports, because they upload video files, had to run out their own fiber. Just even Zoom calls, if you're trying to do 2 Zoom calls at night, I think people will be really interested in being in our town if we're saying, hey, we have really reliable, fast internet, and that's affordable with long-term price stability. So economic development in the sense of like, you'll be able to sell your house when you feel like selling your house, because I don't have cell phone service at my house. So like, I think that would put people off.
And to answer your question in regards to, where's the backbone, she just said that Consumer Reports right here in town ran their own fiber.
Yeah.
So there's fiber here
It's
in
here.
Connecticut. We don't have to go far to get to it.
I would just want to interrupt for a minute. I know we can all understand in the room, but there are going to be people that might be looking at this video later, so if we can make sure that people that are talking from the audience get the microphone. 'cause
It's not working, he said.
It's not
Oh,
working.
it's not
Yeah.
working?
It
If you turn it on and off, that's how I got it
Twice
working
the
earlier.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
You kind of have to play with
And
it.
I
Unless
also,
it ran out of charge.
out of those initial 500 people we had respond, it was almost 90% who said, I'm definitely interested, or I am very interested in learning more about this. So the interest is very, very high from
This town
people.
likes data. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yep.
So
I
do
did
we.
have another question.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like you were talking about, you build out the network and then you run drops from the
Main Street.
From the
main
road.
Street.
to the homes. So let's say there's somebody that decides after everything's gone through that, you know what, I think I want this. Would there be like an installation fee, or, I mean, what kind of extra fees would be there for people that aren't on the ground floor?
So I'm not sure what that would look like yet. I don't know any of us have an answer for that. That's something that we'd kind of need to work through when we go through the financing. There may not be an installation charge because it's already there, right? It's just the drop at that point.
Right.
There might be a small fee because they're having to go back, right?
Dig a trench,
Yeah, they could possibly have to dig a trench. You know, if it's on a line or if it's through it just really depends on the situation. But I think that's something that the committee will work through, especially when we find kind of that financing partner and how we're going to work through those types of situations. Ideally, there would not be a charge.
Right.
Ideally, there would not be
Yeah,
because we
drops are
don't.
pretty easy.
Yeah.
But some of the houses are so far off the road that you need
Yeah.
a telescope to see them.
Yeah, I saw some of those today. Yeah, I had to put my glasses on.
No, but I'm just thinking about people who are like, I'm gonna wait a little bit and see
And
what
see,
it's
wait and
like.
see,
Yep.
sure.
To have them have this increased cost to set it up. I don't know, it's one of those things like, yeah, I'm not gonna do it.
So ideally, there wouldn't be,
Okay.
but you know, I can't say for certain.
Right, no, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Still Connie Chat.
Colleen.
To piggyback on what Teresa said, when we moved in here 9 years ago, it took Comcast a month to come out and connect us. And my husband and I both work from home. We lost a lot of income. We were like, wow, is this a mistake? Is there a way to get that point across to people as you're selling it that, you know, this is an asset to your home?
Mm-hmm.
I would pay more for a house that had fiber
Mhm.
connection.
Yeah, so there's.
Like houses in Wallingford go for more because the town has an electrical service that does not gouge you the way the more
Every
property
source
providers
does it.
do.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because they do state that having fiber to your home does increase your home value by a certain percentage. And so, yes, that could be one of our, you know, sales and marketing pieces that we talk about. We'd want to figure out what that valuation is, so we can give people, you know, a percentage or an idea so that they know that it is bringing up the value of their home by doing that.
I've had
Great point.
multiple real estate agents reach out and say how excited they are about this concept because they think it'll be easier to sell houses to people here.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand this. So this is just internet, so phone and just like your TV is not incorporated.
So all those things right now, do you have cable or do you do anything, do you have like Hulu TV or YouTube TV? So you can do one of two things. You can have fiber to your home and have that as your internet service, and then you can keep your cable for your television service if you wanted to pay for those separately. Or you can cut the cord, is what they call it, right? Which we have, gosh, I want to say it's probably 6-7 years now, where we have not had cable television. We actually do everything through our smart TV. And so we have, you know, Hulu television, we have Max, we have ESPN, we have Netflix. I mean, we subscribe to all of them, right? And so you can do that over the internet and subscribe to those services. It's called over the top, where you subscribe. And those services actually, while they are going up in cost, they are still less expensive than traditional cable television. And I think they always will remain because there's competition, right? There are multiple providers that you have, you know, the opportunity to choose from and services. And so, and as that grows, I think they're going to have a more difficult time raising prices. We're going to see them get more innovative, right, in how they charge for services. But I think, you know, because of the competition, it will help keep costs competitive. And then you can get what they call VoIP services. It's voice over internet, or what's it?
Protocol, yeah.
Voice internet, yeah, protocol. Voice over internet protocol,
Yeah.
VoIP. And it's basically a telephone line that runs over the internet. So a lot of people who don't have landlines anymore, or they don't have cell service at their home, have a VoIP phone, which is really common. That is not common on the west side of the country. It's very common here in the east.
So for any of you who get your phone through Comcast right now, that's technically a VoIP phone, right? It's voice over internet. It's not a hard-lined phone into your house anymore.
And what was your name? Michelle.
Michelle.
There won't be any, like, everything will be computer to subscribe. How about for the elderly who can't process that?
So that was our biggest meeting today. They filled the room.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even think we got a question from any of them about that. They grilled us about everything but that. So I think they're a lot more capable than we give them credit for sometimes.
My father's 95.
But-
There's no way he could do that.
But so this is something that you could easily set up for him. It's a click of a button.
If they were out and far away. I mean, it's just like, you know, it's.
Yeah, well, we understand that not everybody's gonna be able to take advantage of this, and certainly the other services are still gonna be there and be available. You know, Comcast will probably still offer cable as long as they'll want to be there, you know, but I mean, I can imagine that, you know, the marketplace will eventually get to a point where they'll say, everybody's going fiber and we're not, so, you know.
I just think the world is forgetting about our seniors.
Yeah.
And get online and do this, and get online and do that, and get online and do that. You call, you can't get through, you get an app, you can't get anybody to answer an app if you have anything, a landline. It's the most frustrating thing in the world.
It is.
I think part of it being online that you do this sort of stuff, I have a feeling that there's gonna be ways for seniors to call or to set up somebody as, oh yeah, you're gonna be the one that helps me out with it.
Yeah.
And so they give you a call, say, you know, I don't like my internet, can you switch my provider? And so,
It's very hard, I mean, they wanna do it themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a 90-year-old father-in-law who does do it all himself. We're, you know, we got weird phone calls and random messages every once in a while, and we get, you know, FaceTime butt dialed. We're like, what is going on? But he loves it. He really digs into it, loves it, and just gets excited to learn something new. So this is a new concept, right? We've never had to think about these things before. We're asking people to think about something new, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's a learning curve for everyone. And so it'll take all of us to support one another. Again, community network, right? It's going to take the community, you know, to support one another, to truly learn. And then I think everyone will think this is the most simple thing in the world. Why has it taken so long?
But we've also had a huge partnership with the senior center already on this, right? And that's why the turnout was so big today with the seniors. Yeah, so I think you can actually see this because it is a community network. You build that community partnership. The senior center has lunch and learns. They have people that are willing to go out to houses to help people. There's all kinds of things when you have a common system, and I don't go to one house and it's Comcast, another it's Frontier. You have to do different things. That we could build these very simple cheat sheets, checklists, all of those things that somebody could go help you very easily with, or talk you through.
The wires are gonna go underground.
It depends on where you are.
The trees are under the storms.
So this is what I will say. I have been the emergency management director in this town for 18 years, right? We have never had a fiber wire in this town break. It will bring the poles down before the fiber wires break, because of how sturdy they are.
Knock on wood.
Right, knock on wood. So, and that includes going all the way back to Irene and Sandy and all of those things where we were out of power for a long time. We never lost the school's fiber network during that storm. It's very resilient, it tends to hold up. So the trees I don't get so concerned about as far as losing the fiber. It's liable to take poles down and other things, power and that kind of stuff, but we're not gonna see the fiber wires snap overall.
Will this help get better service at schools?
Oh, absolutely.
Right now, there's no cell service at schools.
So it's not gonna help cell service at the
That's cell
schools,
is
this is not
different,
cell.
Broadband,
Yeah.
internet.
So the schools,
A lot of cell phone companies have, issues, so you can go over.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you
Very
for your
welcome.
great
Thank you.
questions. Yes, thank you, everybody.
I'm leaving. I had a long day. I was at the State House. I went